Hello and welcome to another GameGuru Live broadcast number 14, and this broadcast is a little special. This is the broadcast that announces the impending release of the very first beta build. Oh yes, we have entered from left A and gone into B. So I just want to make sure everyone can hear me before I witter on too much. But whilst I wait on the chat to see if that was quick. Wow, I must have a really fast connection this time. I did a false start about 4 minutes before the hour, just to test it out, and it instantly went live. It went live for 10 seconds. So I had to end the stream immediately. Of course, once I ended the stream, it wouldn't give it me back, so I'm doing all sorts of crazy things. So welcome to the GameGuru Max Live broadcast. If you don't know, this is basically me wittering on about the internal development progress for the GameGuru Max Game Maker. And it's something that we've now switched to permanently, where we would do it every other Wednesday, interspersed with sneak peeks. Figured it was more fresh, more up to date, bit more off the cuff if we just did live broadcasts every Wednesday. And this will be the standard feature as we go all the way through the beta phase. What the beta phase is you are testing almost fully function complete software. You're basically testing, just switch that off for you. You're basically testing software that, if we wanted to, we could release it if you had one eye closed. But we're not going to do that. If you read the previous announcement, we decided it would just make a lot more sense if we spent a long time in beta phase. So effectively what you'll be doing is you can still download the software and use the software and create things with the software, but your feedback will actually go right back into the software. We can even change things like the UI, so we can keep updating the user manual, etc. So we're going to sort of start that polishing process. We're going to get things working that aren't quite working. The stuff that aren't working okay, we'll get them sort of working great. And so by the end of November, all the things helping us on our side, we should be able to have a pretty stable game maker, something that you'd be happy to use, something that doesn't have those compromises that would give you pause as to whether you want to use it or not. So this is it, beta build. So I bet you're asking, where is it? Well, it's not released yet. It's going to be released tonight. I'm on UK time, so I think we've got people from all around the world in this chat. I'm probably right in the middle at GMT +1 or BST. And I plan to release it this evening / tonight, something like 10 PM, 11 PM. So look for 10 PM BST if you want to just come back and get the beta. But I'm going to keep working right up to the 11th hour. As soon as this broadcast is over, I'm going to continue working on it. I'm going to do lots and lots of testing. I'm going to get it spread out towards the internal team. And then when I can't really do any more testing and my eyeballs are aching, then I will click the release button and you all get access to the beta build. But don't worry if you install the beta build and almost immediately things go wrong. It is just a beta. You can still report bugs and we will fix them, and there'll be another beta shortly after. Unlike the alphas, which for the cadence was something like a month, betas will come more thick and fast. We'll be fixing things, quick testing, and out to you again. Testing things, out to you again. So there'll be a much quicker cadence with the beta phase, because we want to make sure that you get your hands on the very latest version. So anyway, enough wittering from me. Just one prerequisite. If you've got any questions, as usual, just post them in the live chat. Put a question mark or a question in square brackets so I can skim and find them very quickly. So I'm going to jump straight into the beta. Now, this isn't the beta you're getting. This is the beta I've been testing for various purposes. But certainly everything you see here, you'll be able to do in the beta, and hopefully more things before you actually release it into the world. The first thing I want to show, now remember before you did see painting vegetation and stuff like that, and if I just show you it was a drop down, if you remember. Well, we changed our minds. I think drop down's so boring. Why can't we have little pictures with thumbnails so you can actually see things? So we've switched to that. But we had a bit of a review, a UI review on Monday, and we felt that we could make this even better. So when you click add texture, instead of getting a dialog box, which you do now, you'll actually get a pop-up where you can just see lots of medium-sized thumbnails of that texture, and then you select it and then it gets added to your texture palette. We figured that was a bit more intuitive and nicer for newer users, with of course the ability to still specify a custom texture within that panel. So all I'm going to do now is a bit of a fudge, but I'm just going to get grass. Now this is just painting grass down to change it from that sandy colour, and then once that's done I can show you the thing I really wanted to show, which was multigrass. So if you remember from GameGuru Classic, once you've selected your grass type, that was it. That was the only grass you could paint in the entire world. But with this one, you can actually choose. Say you wanted your green grass, or you think, no, I think I'll have the brown grass instead. So it replaces all the green grass with the brown grass. But you could actually have both. So it'll randomly select between those two grass types. And so you get some sort of random distribution of the two. So you get sort of the more dead brown grass to the mix of them to nothing but green. And another thing that we had in our review is that wouldn't it be great if we could just get the grass looking really AAA? So we are working on, this is just the functional stuff. So we've got the textures, we've got the mechanisms, the painting and stuff like that. But what we want to do now is then go back and use a photogenic comparison quality things to try and work on the very subtle things. Like if I just zoom right down, you see the difference between that grass, that's just a temporary grass, and the blades of grass. Then the floor and the grass should blend together, so you don't really notice where the floor grass stops and the real polygon grass starts. That kind of thing. So let us work on that for you. We'll create some really nice stock grass that you just have to select a nice big picture and start painting with it. But what I really wanted to show off is the multi-grass technique. So let's say we didn't want that grass, maybe we wanted lots of different ones. All 4 are now being selected randomly and then sprayed around. As always with the brush, you can change the size of what you want to spray. You've also got down here spray minimum and maximum. That controls the height. So another thing you may have noticed in Classic is that when you spray down grass, it's all kind of the same height. Would it be nice if you could actually spray down some low grass? Let's just set that really low and spray that down. And then you said, no, I want a lot of grass. So you go right up to the top and then you paint some higher grass. So you can actually control the height and the minimum and maximum within the range of this randomness. So you get a lot more control over different kinds of grass you're painting and all the heights and the choices and the rest of it. And this is by no means final. This is just sort of a first stab at what you might want with multigrass. And it's certainly a lot better than Classic, and I'm sure we can go a long way with it. Perhaps even doing the same with the terrain palette. We select add texture and it just gives you a selection of, say, 15 of the grasses that we've already pre-perfected. Another thing, as I was testing, wouldn't it be good if you could switch both paint texture and paint grass on at the same time? So as you're painting down, not only is it painting the grass, it's actually painting the terrain texture underneath. I figured that would kind of be super essential if you wanted it super intuitive and easy. But don't hold your breath on that, that won't be in the beta. That's just something that occurs to me as I'm adding and tweaking and working on and testing these UI elements. So that's the grass. I want to show you something else, and I'm going to just leave the software and come back simply for stability. I don't really want to showing you sort of beta issues in the middle of a live broadcast, so it's easier if I just start again. And this next feature I'm going to show you is a bit of a biggie. Remember when I said that in order to import a level from Classic, you'd have to copy over your FPM, then find all the assets that you used and copy all those over manually, make sure you don't miss any files. Well, I presented that to the internal team and they just stared blankly at me like, who the smeg is going to do that? No one is going to do that. Pick through every single file as a dependent on that level. No. Why can't you just have it? So you just go to the Classic folder, go to the map bank, select a level that you're interested from Classic, say the Big Escape, and then have GameGuru Max do all of that for you. Why can't it import the old level into the new one, convert the old terrain system into the new terrain system, copy all the assets from GameGuru Classic into GameGuru Max, make any conversions or any repairs to those assets as it go into Max, and so by the time you've finished that, it actually is in Max, and you haven't had to do any manual transfer whatsoever. And that's what you just saw then as I was wittering on. What I've actually got here is the fog. I'm really high in the sky, and the fog's kind of killing it right now. So if I just change the fog intensity so it goes further away, you actually get to see what I'm talking about. That is the Big Escape level. It's copied across all the assets, put them in the writables area of GameGuru Max, and then proceeded to load that level in. Now, a couple of things you probably noticed, I'll just quickly mention what they are. Right now, the texture hasn't been brought over, so it's just the same texture that you saw in that previous blank map. So it will bring across the texture and the stuff you've painted on the floor. That's one of the things that still needs to go into the converter. And also mirroring the grass. So the grass that you used in the previous level should be the grass you use here. But converted over. So it's converted to the Max way of doing things. So once you've converted over and saved the FPM, you can't take that FPM, take it back to Classic. It's a one-way port. But I think you'll agree it's a lot easier to do that than to go around doing it all manually. So another thing I want to point out is see where the terrain just stops right there. That's because the terrain quality is much higher. If I just zoom to here, for example, you see how nicely rounded these are, whereas in GameGuru Classic they were a bit sharp. We've increased the resolution of the geometry on terrain by a factor of 5. But as we was guesstimating how big the terrains need to be, we realised that the height maps on GameGuru Classic are much larger than a single terrain node of the resolution we chose. So basically it falls off the edge. So that will be filled in when we have the multi-nodes added to the system. But it basically focuses on the centre of your map, so providing you don't go off in any direction too much, you should be able to you should be on dry land. So I'm just going to pick a start marker and drop me in here, maybe a bit further back. And as you might expect, you want to be able to change the weapon because we're going to have to shoot some people shortly. And there's other things we can try, such as this grass. I don't really like that grass, so if we go to grass, one of the things I didn't show you last time is if you've got a grass that you've been using, you can actually customize it. You can change that grass. So I'm going to change it from, I think it's this one, to this one, which is a thinner grass that's a little bit more in keeping with the sandy colour that you see there. And basically what it does, it not only imports that grass, it converts as it needs to if it's imported, creates a surface texture and all that kind of stuff. But of course, that's something you can import, and as I said, we are going to work on the grass. So let me just press test game. If we put our start marker in the correct location, we'll land on a piece of terrain instead of falling to the water. And we're being shot at. So shoot him, and this guy as well. Sorry about the darkness right now. Obviously, everything is the correct lighting model. What that basically means is the lighting settings that were done in Classic and the ones that are doing in Max are very, very different because they're very, very different graphics engines. But as you can see, if we just change clear to cloudy, already all of the colours change because the sky is contributing. The colours here are contributing to everything that's rendered in the scene. If we go to, say, for example, visuals, we can increase the sun. We can bring that down. Obviously, again, in Classic you couldn't move the sun. In this one, in GameGuru Max, you can. So let's put it there. And also, another really cool thing is that the hills cast shadows. So you'll see that when you're editing and sculpting terrain, as it goes up, you'll actually cast its own shadow. And of course, that helps blend all that scene nicely together. So as you can see, it's quite a faithful reproduction. It's not perfect. I think the mapping between the height map of the Classic height map and GameGuru Max is slightly off, but that will be dealt with once we actually introduce the terrain node system. which will not only cover the entire size of a classic terrain, but much, much more. Just run up here just to show you that it's all here. If you ever played The Big Escape, you'll run around here, bang, bang. And there's a grenade I think you can collect, something you can collect here. And of course you can throw, go back to the gun, shoot the barrels. So of course it all works, all the logic is there. It's simply that we need to tell the converter how to map as close as possible the old lighting settings and various assets onto the new GameGuru Max system. So obviously you can explode barrels, there's other logic, like I think this health pack has a script. Now that script doesn't exist in Max, but it exists in Classic. One of the things that I'm also adding to the converter is if it detects a script that isn't in the new Max hierarchy, folder hierarchy, it just copies it over from Classic. So the idea is if you've invented your own script, tied it to an entity, and you've loaded in your level, you move over it and click. You'll actually execute that script, and all the Lua script is nearly identical, all the programming language, so everything should just work logically like it did before in Classic. So that is what I wanted to show you in terms of the beta. I do encourage you, when you get the beta build tonight, or more likely tomorrow when you wake up, I'd like you to test it. I'd like you to try your old levels. Certainly try out the backwards compatibility importer. It's important that, let me just go back into the editor just to illustrate the point. It's important that when you do select an FPM file, that you actually select it from your GameGuru Classic folder. So don't select it as if it's sort of like in your own folder. It has to have that GameGuru executable 2 steps back. What I mean by that is this one, GameGuru folder, you see where it is? Steam Library, GameGuru Apps Common, GameGuru Files, and Map Bank. And I can select anything from there and it will do that conversion process. It won't save it into the new location until you choose to save as, but it'll certainly load it in and copy all the assets over for you. But that file needs to be, if you go back 3, no, 2, I was right first time. It has to be this, the root folder of GameGuru, in which is the GameGuru.exe. That way it knows it's a process of importing the old Classic level into the new Max one, and it's not just a regular FPM load. And I'd like you to try that with your old projects. I think that's pretty kingpin, and probably the one that's going to spawn the most feedback and the most issues for us to resolve in Max. All of the thousands of myriad issues of what happens when you try and take an old project and have it imported into Max. But I'm pretty encouraged with how the Big Escape is coming along. Like I said, with a couple of assets, a few tweaks, some lighting stuff, and extra terrain nodes, the gameplay will be indistinguishable, but of course all the extra visual options. Now, my brain is already telling me that I have done some serious witter today, such that I have exceeded my timetable without allowing for questions. But because this is a live broadcast special, because we are releasing the beta build, and I do have the time, well, no, I never have the time, but I'm going to make time to answer all of the questions and see if I can get to the end of the live chat. So please do post your questions if you have them. As soon as I end this live broadcast, I'm straight back into the code, continuing to work on things, but primarily testing. So the beta build that you get will be nice and solid, or at least as solid as I can make it in the time that I have for the rest of today. And another thing that we'll be looking at is improving the reliability of the ASIMP importer as well. We've had some good reports with some models and not so good reports with others, and so we're going to go back to ASIMP and get the very latest repo from ASIMP and build that into the beta as well. I think it is a risk, but I think it's a risk worth taking. It means you'll just get a better import experience if that's the thing you want to focus on. So I'm going to go to the live chat and I'm going to start at the top. It would be really great if we could actually have like an icon or some sort of different colour for all the question ones in this chat. That way I could find them really quick. Maybe that feature exists. Who knows? Okay, let's look for a question. Hey Lee, is the GameGuru officially launched? No, it is not officially launched. We have officially launched the beta build. But this is just another day in the life of development. It's just, instead of an alpha, it's now a beta. The beta is better than alpha, and the release candidate is better than a beta, and a released product is better than a release candidate. So this is beta. We're on our way towards that release, that elusive release date, which I'm absolutely wanting to release before Christmas, because I will need a break after this year. Looking for the next question. Okay, there's some chat. Let's just get through this till we find a question mark. This could be the quickest question and answers ever. Found one. Will FBX import be avail? Question. That's from D32 Productions. As mentioned, we are bringing in the latest async. The async does some good FBX importing, and that will find its way into the import process. Tricky thing with importing, you know, you can get one model that looks great, and then the next model absolutely bombs out everything. So I think your mileage is varying when it comes to FBXs, and a little better with GLTF because the format has less time to have got very roguey. But of course, OBJs are the simplest of formats, and those typically work very well. So its mileage may vary on FBXs, but please do check it out and feedback, and even send us the FBX models if you're allowed to, if they don't load, because then we'll have them as our testing base, and then we'll make sure that async is coaxed into loading in the FBX, so they actually get into GameGuru Max. User manual. Will GameGuru Max have an actual manual? Yes, it does. We've got one here. Read user manual. It looks like that. It's a beta. It's under construction. It has many chapters, and we continue to build it. We'll be adding to this all the way through the beta phase, basically because the software will continue to change. As I already hinted, there are things we want to change in the UI, and the UI and the user manual has to reflect that. So yeah, you will definitely get a user manual, but we're not just going to leave you with there's a user manual, good luck. We are going to add in the built-in tutorial system. We are looking at the idea of some additional tutorials, maybe some getting started things, just to sort of ease a new user into all of these buttons that they could suddenly presented with when they run the software for the first time. How about making weapons? No plans to do weapon makers in GameGuru Max. I think we'll have plenty to be getting on with without all of that. I mean, that's like a product in itself when you think about it. But certainly we'll release a manual on how you can make your own weapons if you have a 3D modeler and an animator and some artistic technical skills. Yep, Rick's just put on the chat that the user manual is 90% complete. 80-90% would be my guess, but yeah, we're very much along on the user manual. Any questions further down? Question. Best way to report bugs for the beta is through GitHub, right? Question mark. Yes. Once I have got this beta build out, you can still use the forums just to chat about what your experiences are, but we will be formalizing the posting of bug reports. So there already is on GitHub a special max tag that you can add to your reports. Once we see those max tags, those are the ones we're focusing in on. And it is a nice organized way of cracking on and getting through as many of the fixes during the beta phase. And don't get me wrong, we'll still continue to be developing the software long after the release in December. It's just that the beta phase puts us in a position where it's reliable enough to make games and levels and work on the things that you want to work on. But with something this complicated and with such a small team, there will always be gremlins hiding probably for months in the software, and the GitHub will continue to be used to receive bugs, and we go through them and fix them and keep releasing updates. Here's a question mark. No, that isn't. This is a question mark. Will we be able to import our own characters? Sure, you can import a character using the importer, which has animations. You can then go into the Lua script and then tell that animated object, what to do and where to go and what animations to play. So you can do all that, sure. If you mean, can you magically get any character from the internet, import it, and it instantly knows how to walk and run and shoot and talk and gesture and all the rest of it? Well, the answer to that is no. No. For that, you'd use the built-in character creator. But for a character you've just found, you would have to actually import it and then do your own scripting around that character. Here's a question. Will importing bought 3D party animated characters and weapons be the same process as it was in Classic? No, because GameGuru Max has its own importer. It has a new importer and it's a better importer. So that process is quite different, so don't worry too much. Someone's just posted multipass, multigrass, lol. Okay, finding the next question. Will multigrass, can you make your own grass and import it? Sure, it's just a texture. Just paint a grass with some alpha. Select it from the right, as you can see here, the little ... Select that. It then gets added to what's called a super palette for grass. You can have up to 16 grasses in the multi-veg system. The reason I'm limited to 16 is I managed to gain a lot of performance by sticking them all on a single texture plate. And you'll thank me given how much grass you might want in your game. And I think 16 grasses is enough per level. Obviously you can have a different set of 16 grasses for each level in your game. But certainly it's just a texture, just import it. If you want to be really clever, you can import the normal and the surface texture for it as well, with our PBI naming convention. This is looking impressive, thanks very much, Board of the Rings. Looking for... There's a question mark, how is everyone doing today? I'm doing fine. Okay, moving down to the next question. Any chance of getting a minimap added that will show your quests? I think that is on GameGuru missing. That will look really good. You'll certainly be able to get the compass. If you remember the big escape, the compass in the top right, that is actually part of the Lewis scripting system. It should actually have been there. It's probably just the script wasn't copied over because I've not added that bit to the converter yet. But I think as soon as the script goes in, and of course copying the assets that the script uses, the compass should just appear. If you mean, are we going to add new things, like add a whole quest system and lots of extra gadgets and UI stuff for quests? No, there are no plans to add quest gadgets in the release of GameGuru Max. But I certainly agree it'd be great to have them. Does you plan to expose those sun/light settings via Lua? Do I intend to expose the sun commands? No plans to actually add any Lua commands for the first couple of betas, but I think it's inevitable. It would be a good idea to actually add the settings within Lua script, because then you can do really cool things like program your own night-day systems and just mess about with shadows and light and all the rest of it. So I think it'd be a great idea, and I'm sure someone will actually prod me to get those in before we get closer to the release. Here's another question. Where do I install my final version of GameGuru? All I see in the products menu is all of the alphas. You don't install any products into our products tab. I suppose what you're asking is, was the beta? Well, if you go to the products tab later tonight, instead of alphas, you'll actually see a beta build, and then you download that and install it on your computer. So that's where you'll find it from. Next question. Has the new alpha been released today already? Question mark. No, no new alphas have been released today. Is this GameGuru Max? The answer is yes. What question mark? I thought that September 30th was the date, question mark. Read the last announcement. It's labelled something like GameGuru Max release plans, exclamation mark. That will give you lots of juicy information on what's going on. And it seems to have been answered already in the chat. Thanks for that, guys and gals. Enright, they had a discussion in the forum. Hey, there's a big question from Toby Clark. Would I be able to make a muzzle flash by making light in front of the gun and make it disappear instantly? Yeah, I suppose you could if you had an entity that was a light, and then you move that entity in front of your gun, and then add a script which would change the colour or remove the light after a second or two. You could do that, sure. I mean, we'll be doing that ourselves. You'll be able to have that built in, but you can certainly script it if you want to be specific and do certain things your way instead of taking the ones that we've done as an assumption. Here's a question. Have you guys and gals Talked about minimaps and on-screen inventory slots or an inventory system for finished games. See previous answer. Question, with VR, will you be able to physically grab objects instead of the floaty tether grab? We'll only have the floaty tether grab. Grabbing objects requires a grabby hand, and we don't have a grabby hand for the first couple of betas. We have a really great hand, and we have it rigged so it's got bones and fingers, but to have it grabby and wrap itself around the contours of an arbitrary shaped object, great idea. Not for the betas, probably not for release. GameGuru is worst. You can't learn GameGuru from it. You can't learn game dev from it. That's from Baduri. Thanks for your opinion. Will there be a water paint tool if we want to stream or a mountain but don't want to flood the map? For release, there'll only be the water plane, so you can raise it and lower it. There isn't going to be a feature for painting volumes or bodies of water. That would still have to be done the old-fashioned way, which is basically a water plane in a hole, and then you apply the water plane with a watery texture, and then the physical characteristics of water when you're under that plane. It's a great idea, it's just not on a short-term roadmap. Once GameGuru Max is out, what will happen to Classic Guru? Classic Guru will continue to be developed. We've actually engineered the software, so as we fix bugs or add what we consider core features that span both products will get it. So if we say I made a fix for something that is very familiar, if not identical in Max as it is in Classic, we only have to fix it once and then just do 2 builds. So Classic users will be able to get certain levels of fixes as well as the GameGuru Max users. So both products will run in tandem, side by side. You've got some differences. GameGuru Classic's 32-bit. Because of that, it's lower system memory. We'll aim for certain lower spec systems. GameGuru Max wants you to use a nice higher graphics card. So there's a reason for keeping Classic going, because it caters for a slightly different audience. I mean, there's a lot of Venn diagram overlap, but they are 2 products and they'll be running parallel until such time as the GameGuru Classic community all disappear and they all move to Max, in which case there wouldn't be any point maintaining Classic, and we'll just put that energy into Max to make Max development accelerate a little bit faster. Lot of questions. I shouldn't have really threatened to answer all of them because it's going to go on forever, this. Roblox will support update GameGuru Classic. I don't think Roblox will be supporting GameGuru Classic. So looking down for a question mark. Lots of smileys. No questions, no questions, no questions. Lots of chat. Okay. I think we're getting to the end here. Oh yeah, we've got a question. It's a question colon. Will GameGuru Classic become free when Max comes out? No, there's no plans to make GameGuru Classic free at this time. We'll let you know if we're thinking about that. But it wouldn't be fair for anyone who's just paid some money for it and then the next day it's suddenly free forever. Okay, looking down there. Here we go. I was told to use Lua to do a minimap inventory system. Do you have any suggestions where I can find a Lua script to add a minimap and inventory system into my GameGuru game? I would start with there's a really nice article on Steam which tells you how to go through Lua, the basics of Lua, in relation to GameGuru, and just create some simple scripts and work from there. It's always good to have those skills, because then you start simple and then before you know it, you're creating some very savvy game logic and you'll feel really happy about it. Here's a question. When do you plan to release the official GameGuru Max? That will be the 1st of December, UK time. The beta won't have the test. Is that not in the final full version? I think that's a response to something previous. Here's a question from Mad Lad Designs. What demo levels will come with the beta and first version? Well, there'll certainly be the seller demo. I'm going to make sure that the seller demo does all the things that I want it to do, so you can play around with that with the beta later on. I have been in talks with a couple of you guys out there in the community who are doing some sterling work, and I would like to showcase even just a sample of what you're doing and include it in GameGuru Max. Some of you already know about it, some may suspect. I'll be contacting you at some point, but certainly if you think you've done something absolutely drop dead gorgeous in Max and I haven't seen it, send it to me, because these samples showing different kind of visual styles is all important. It shows the power of specifically the Wicked Engine's rendering capabilities, and what people can do if they import the right kind of assets. So please do send them to me if you think this will be a nice little sample demo for GameGuru Max. But I'll be focusing on quality. So I'm just going to focus all my energies on the seller demo and make sure that is a good demonstration of what you can do with GameGuru Max. Here's a question further down. In what ways will GameGuru Max compete with other engines like BuildBox or Lumberyard? I think all tools compete, on a very broad spectrum of how much time you have to dedicate to your hobby or career, and then the tools you choose to use. I don't think we're going to redefine the laws of nature with this game maker, and there are certain aspects that we absolutely cannot compete with these Leviathan companies putting out these commercial quality and prosumer tools. That's just not realistic. What we can say is that GameGuru Max will fill a niche. It'll fill a niche that no other game quite fills. And if you are fortunate to discover it and you find that you can use it and create stuff with it, then that's great. But it's not going to be the be-all and end-all tool. I don't see there's anything wrong with having lots of game makers in the market space. So I'm not too concerned. And good luck to everyone. Everyone should have so much luck. Here's a question. Will there be better support for open world games such as performance large amounts of assets? In the sense that we've now got a terrain node-based system which is using virtual texturing and virtual geometry texturing, you can have very large worlds. I wouldn't say necessarily insanely open worlds, but you can have very large worlds. In the sense of open worlds for, say, massive multiplayer, no. There's no plans to support massive multiplayer. That is a whole kettle of fish different than what we're going to be focusing on, which is small multiplayer and single player. Here's another question. In fact, I'm just looking at the clock. I mean, it's insane. This is the longest broadcast ever, but I think I do need to be a little sensible. So I'm going to stop the clock at 45 minutes. So I have another 6 or 7 minutes to go. So I can answer a few more questions for you. Here we go. Do you plain import multi-meshes with multi-textures? Yes. It would be crazy not to allow the importer to detect that a model needs multiple textures and load those in and have multi-meshes within that model. If it doesn't do it right now, or it doesn't do it in this beta, it's because it's a bug. So please report it and send us the model that's causing it, and we'll get that sorted, because it's super important that you've got multi-textures and multi-meshes within models. Here's a question from Zirath Ashe. Does the multiplayer still have a minimum of 8 players? And if I get it, and if it gets increased, is having low quality graphics something that's required for smooth gameplay? Yes, it's still 8 players. We're not planning on making it any more than 8 players because the way you actually code the game for a server that needs more than 8 players is different than the one we've actually done right now, which is a form of peer-to-peer with one of the peers running all of the game. That poor PC, if you've got 65 players, just won't be able to keep up. So there isn't any plans on having any more than 8 players. And the performance and the lag issues, that could be anything. It could be GPU bound, CPU bound, broadband bound. It's not so much broadband bound in the sense of how fast the FPS is. It's really how quick the game updates if there's a lot of players in. Even a 4-player game on a bad connection can have players seemingly bounce around and teleport by magic. So there's lots of, that's game development, and you're really going to learn it by doing it. I think that's my best summary for that answer. Question from Mr. Witherstorm. Custom explosions? ? Yeah, you can actually go in and create your own explosion textures and create a new profile. I'll also be done manually in Windows Explorer and Notepad. So there isn't just a drag and drop instant explosion. You have to actually create those profiles yourself with a file or two. Just finding another question. Here's a question from Danny De Beer, even better. Which will be the best VR goggles in GGM? Not to break the bank. I've always been impressed with Windows Mixed Reality. I know it's not had always the best press, But I have a Dell visor and it's super comfortable, and I wear glasses sometimes, and I can lift it up and put it down, and it doesn't push the glasses right into my face and hurt me. And the quality is pretty good, and the response is pretty good, and it's inside-out tracking, so no radars or towers, and the price is reasonable. So I'd say Windows Mixed Reality. Of course, you can go crazy on the higher end stuff, but if you just want to have that VR experience for about 400, then yeah, look for some Windows Mixed Reality. They're all pretty cool. Can we see underwater? Certainly, you can go underwater, you can see underwater. You've got some basic underwater physics, but not a lot. And as was discussed, I think, in a previous broadcast, down the road we are going to sort of add more visuals for the underwater effects, but you won't get them on release. Maybe later on in the beta if we'd start focusing more on underwater. So I'm just looking at the clock. I'll do 2 more questions and then that's it. Dare I ask, is source code on GitHub likely in December? Not sure. Not sure. Once we get to the release, it might be a case of let's just hold on to the source code and continue to clean it up through into 2021 until it's the point where when people do check out the source code, it actually makes a lot of sense and it's all cleaned up and none of the old stuff is in there. And remember, it's now this sort of 3-in-1 source code repo, so it might be a bit heavy for most people to check out and use. But the jury's still out on that. I think it's a good idea in some respects, and it can confuse people in another. So the last question, will GameGuru Max have templates? Yeah, I mean, eventually I'd like it to. I mean, if you can go into that new project and select that, I just want a forest scene, or I just want a snow scene, or a desert scene, or an alien scene. And then it can just auto-generate a lot of the stuff for you, drop you in the middle of it, and then just carve out your reality without you having to do everything from scratch. I think that's super important for new users and users who don't have a lot of time, or all they wanted was procedural generation of this stuff in the first place, and then being forced to do it all manually. I think it's a great idea, but it won't be for the beta, it won't be for the release. But it's certainly something we can discuss in the GameGuru forums for years to come. So that's me. That's what I've been talking about. I'm going to now crack on, do a little bit more coding, and then do some beta builds and test them, and then you will get your version of it tonight. As always, we'll do all this again next Wednesday. I promise it won't be this long. I just deliberately, actually, I wrote in the footnotes of what I was going to present today, extra long. I just wanted to make sure that, I can change things up a little bit, and hopefully that time allowed you to get some of your questions answered and a little greater insight into what's going on in the mind of the GameGuru universe. So until next Wednesday, I'll say goodbye, and thanks for listening.